We'll do a bunch of stuff. I love that tune.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to Field Talk. I am the Field, also known as Field of Bears, here to remind you that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide, and also to talk to you on ideals and heroes. What is your ideal? Now that's a question that cuts deep, and one that I ought to engage with more often. Your ideal is something you aspire to be, to become. That shining star that is just out of your reach, whose unattainability increases rather than discourages. Encourages rather than discourages. To be hardworking and not to be lazy. To be courageous, to be honest. To be what is good, or at least not bad. I don't suppose anybody has actually achieved their own ideals, let alone somebody else's, apart from Jesus. That does not stop us from striving, and I suppose that's a good thing. The flip side of that is, of course, despair. Some people start the road to their ideal with the notion that the star could actually be grasped. Reach and fall enough times, and reaching again might seem like a cruel joke. Why not simply shrug off the burden of trying and float down that lazy river of hedonism then? Why not give up on the better and wallow in base pleasure or pain if that's all you have? Because that makes it worse, not better. I know I'm disorderly. I also know my struggle to order my space will never end. But if I stop cleaning my room, what happens? Lobster attacks. That's what happens. What happens when you seek out people you know are bad for you? You get dominated, hoodwinked, betrayed, and exposed to deadly danger. Despair is deadly. An easy, lazy slide into the abyss is no less cowardly than the quick and dirty way out of the battle that is life. It is a battle. We don our armor and take up arms against the forces of darkness, misanthropy, terror, pestilence, predation, and outright malevolence. Aim for your ideal, and do not shirk your place in that line. And don't let me do it either. All this talk about ideals makes you think about heroes. you know, there was probably a warrior called Achilles. He probably was the greatest warrior that the Hellenes had ever seen. However, an immortal juggernaut on the battlefield who left a wake of blood and terror as he cleaved a path to victory? Unlikely. He might have been a warrior as close to the ideal hoplite as can be imagined. He probably was a hero, and a real one, but a real human too, vulnerable to arrows in more places than just his heel. This is not unique to ancient times. In this age, we can see right now people are put up on pedestals of embodiment of particular ideals, usually in the realms of talent. Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, Floyd Mayweather, Chuck Liddell, Johnny Cash, Conor McGregor, Darius Rucker, Elvis Presley, Freddie Mercury, Taylor Swift, Ludwig von Mises, Shaq, Thomas Sowell, and many more besides may spring into your mind at the word hero, or maybe it's more personal than that. These people are no doubt heroes to many, hated by others, but some mistakenly make these flawed humans their ideals, and expect them to behave in accordance with their ideals. The worshipped hero is held as closely to a person's heart as a god, and one that asks for nothing in return. He or she can be a repository for all of the worshippers' hopes, dreams, and ideals, worthy or not, and thus is transformed into an unwilling mechanism for avoiding self-knowledge and self-improvement. See, it's not about the hero or how great that hero is, it's all about the worshipper. That being said, it's fairly obvious that the hero is expected to walk an extraordinarily straight path where the ideals are concerned, even if they are given ludicrous leeway in all other areas. For instance, a football star can beat up his girlfriend in an elevator, but as long as he's still a good football player, he shall have defenders. An actress can be as promiscuous as she likes, abandon her children to a parade of minimum wage nannies, but if she's still pretty and decent at delivering lines for the camera, she gets a pass. However, if the hero steps outside the worshipper's ideal, then they shall be subject to the worst kind of hatred and vile imaginable. Taylor Swift comes to mind, and so now does Jack Dorsey. Like it or not, he's a hero to the left. Whether you think them heroes or not, they have worshippers, and they did not deserve that worship or the way they were received. They were reviled for not being the gods that were wanted. So those are my thoughts on hero worship, inexpertly delivered to the camera. No tea tonight because it is hot. I don't know, Space Battleship. I mean, anything can be attacked for not being a real job if you define real job narrowly enough. I think it counts as a job. They can be heroic. Volume. Let's try turning up the gain a little bit. Is that better, Bernie? Well, that's pretty funny, Space Battleship. Oh. I think I might need to get like a real audio person to help me with these settings. I have no clue what I'm doing apparently. So let's get a little bit more personal than just my monologue, eh? I have some personal heroes, some of which are probably unsurprising to you. It's a little bit hard to talk about this, but The very first hero that I think of is my father, actually. I know it's a little bit of a cliche for a man to call his own father his hero, but he is the best example for integrity that I have ever seen. He has had more opportunities to act in an unscrupulous or disingenuous way than most people can even fathom. Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the swing arm rather than the stand. I think that'll be better. And on top of that, in order to provide for his family, he sacrificed like you wouldn't believe until he was able to make himself and his family wealthy. Yeah, I need an audio person to help me. I'll get Pinder. Hey, someone get Pinder to come watch me. And so there's the first hero and why. I'll have to look up Dan Carter. I'll look him up. I don't really have very many sports heroes. My next hero is yeah, my next aspirational hero. What would that be? Well, actually, General George S. Patton. He was a mean son of a gun, but he knew how to get the job done, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. I don't think he was a terribly moral person, but when you're in the middle of a war zone, you can't exactly afford to be moral all the time. It'd be better to avoid the war altogether. Which is why another hero of mine is Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand survived the horrors of the Soviet Union, escaped to America, revealed why socialism can't work, and proposed a minarchistic system that would work better. Although I don't quite agree with her criticisms of altruism as self-immolation. Like, altruism as an ideology is obviously horrifying, but doing things that might be considered altruistic in order to create a world which is better to live in, I think, is not the same thing as self-immolation. That's right. And I disagree with Never Meet Your Heroes, and I'll tell you why in a second. Yeah, Ayn Rand. She wrote Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and also came up with a philosophy called, what was it? Rationalism? No. What is objectivism? Objectivism. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Ayn Rand. So she was a pretty towering individual. So another one of my heroes who's still alive. I'll get to the why I disagree with Never Meet Your Heroes in a second here. Yeah, I did share this on Twitter, but it would help me, of course, if you guys would share as well. Um, it's after the monologue though. But hey, discussion right in the middle is still pretty good. Talking about our personal heroes. Hello, Trevor. So, the next one, still living, is actually sweet. You mean the app? Yeah. Thank you, Debbie. So, where was I? Still living hero. Uh, while it's like my still living heroes are Stefan Molyneux, Steven Crowder, and Owen Benjamin, and to a degree, Ben Shapiro, in the realms of like famous people who aren't my parents. And the reason why I think that you can meet your heroes is you have to look at them like they're still human beings. Like Ben Shapiro is not my ideal. I think he's an honest, forthright person. Yes, of course, smash that like button. I think that Ben Shapiro is an honest, forthright person who is incredibly sharp, but is still a human being with all of the flaws that entails, which includes blindness in the face of something you don't understand. Or maybe not don't understand, it's something that you can't just wrap your head around, I guess. Which isn't quite the same thing. Like sometimes your expectations can shape your perceptions a little bit. I think that's a problem that Ben's been having lately. But see, with Owen, who I do regard as a heroic individual and a personal hero of mine who exemplifies a lot of traits which I think he does a better job at embodying than I do. I still realize that he is a human. Like he's not going to do everything perfectly. He can't he can't follow his own ideals perfectly, let alone mine. And I think that the uh recent Civil War stuff I've been hearing about lately, Bears, is proof of that. Like he's a person, and I met him, and I wasn't disappointed because I expected him to be just a cool dude. I don't know what the end culture virus is, Barney. I don't know what that is. So what? And and that's what I was talking about at the end here is Jack Dorsey, Taylor Swift, all of these famous people. It's like they step out of line, out of the line of groupthink, out of line of the ideal that their worshippers have for them. And this doesn't just happen to like singers or left wing activist type people. It can happen to people like Owen. It's like the second you step outside of their ideal, it's just boom, vitriol, hatred. It's like oh yeah. Actually, I think Ann Coulter is just trying to keep the pressure on. I think that's what she's trying to do because Republicans have been burned a lot by politicians. Republican politicians have been promising enforcement of the border wall for since before I was born, since Reagan actually, I think. And it's yet to happen. It's finally happening now under Trump. Oh, all right. Bye, Debbie. The show lasts for an hour, and it's only been about 20 minutes, so we'll probably be here when you get back. Yeah. So, I think Donald Trump does get hero worshipped a lot as well, and I think he got hero worshipped by a lot of white supremacists, which is why the alt right kind of hates Trump now, because he's not being racist like they thought he would be, because they projected their own ideas onto him. That is a That's very good. For those of you who aren't reading the chat as it's going up, Space Battleship says that this Dan person he mentioned earlier caters his message to kids that he was no one special. He just practiced every day, and that is a very simple, important message. The practice makes perfect message, and it's not communicated in an effective way to the generation coming up after us millennials, and I think it wasn't communicated to us millennials very well, which is why a lot of us are awfully lazy. Oh, that's a very good point, Space Battleship. He does have a Jewish daughter, and he did bring Jews into the White House. He is pretty bad at being a white supremacist with all those Jews in his family and pardoning those black people who had racially motivated convictions or sentences. Also commutations, because some of them should have been convicted, but the sentence was like egregious. But it's like the justice system is operated by humans, and humans are flawed. It's like that. I think is going to be the theme. Humans are imperfect, and some of our imperfections are going to be biases for or against certain people or certain people groups based on erroneous ideas. And I think maybe we should try and tease out this idea of misanthropy some more, because while it is true that in aggregate the races do have certain statistical differences in their averages, every individual is differentiated from the average man to such a degree that there is no other individual precisely like him. So that insofar as we are different from each other, we have that in common. Whew. I think I have that piece of language put together, guys. So, being that every individual shares the property of uniqueness with every other individual, then there is no individual who does not have at least some common ground with every other individual. Democracy is also democracy is also operated by flawed humans who are capable of mistakes and errors. I understand analogizing organizations to machines, because they do kind of grind on their own accord, and the people operating at their lower levels happen to function as cogs in a sort of way without very much autonomy. However, there are certain individuals within any kind of organization or system who are in a decision-making position, and those individuals will have a certain propensity for error, which will cause imperfect outcomes to arise over time, which might be rectified or might not be, depending on whether it's possible or if it's even desired. So, yeah, and given, and I think that also flawed, the idea of flawed human beings, imperfect human beings, is another commonality that every individual has with every other individual. So that's that's two pieces of commonality that exists across every race, and that goes straight to the core of a human being. It's no trivial thing. It's not trivial at all, I think. Yeah, I'm definitely going back to the swing arm. I don't like this stand. Well, see, Space Battleship, I think that democracy is inferior to market, because democracy is the will of the mob, not the will of the individual. Every individual ought to be able to make their own choice, so long as it doesn't so long as your choices do not violate the autonomy of any other person. A constitutional republic works best out of all of the systems that we've tried. We haven't tried pure markets yet. No geographical location has surrendered governmental sovereignty ever. I don't know if there is a culture currently on Earth capable of doing that, but I think we can get to it, possibly, if we stop hitting our children and start protecting them from rape gangs a little bit. I think it might be possible. Yes, I said that at the beginning, Barney. I said socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. So the two strains of commonality exist between all humans, regardless of sex or race. And that is, every individual is differentiated from the average of any demographic they happen to belong to a sufficient degree that no other individual is exactly like them. So, uniqueness. That sounds like as long as both parties in the duel have the option to engage in a non-lethal duel, I think we can make that work. Space Battleship. I think we can make a flotilla civilization with disputes settled by dueling. I think we can make it work. We can call it. We can call it. Yeah. See, the trouble with that, Space, is the trouble with that is you're going to run out of duelists. Duelistia! That's what we'll call it. We'll call it Duelistia. Every other individual. And so, I think there's already an Oceania. So every individual, and also every individual is flawed in some way, and every individual has a unique idea of what perfection or the ideal actually is. And I think that those three things, well, we'll challenge them to a duel, and that way we'll be the only Oceania. See, even if we let them live, they can't be Oceania anymore. Long live Oceania. No commies allowed. You know what? There's one dispute that won't be allowed to have a duel, and that is whether communism can be tried. Anyone who says that communism has never been tried before gets the helicopters immediately. I think it should actually the ideology guiding Oceania should probably be called "Don't be a dick or we'll stab you in the face." I think sea bears will be in order within Oceania, Barney, and like the knights, they'll be immune from most duels. Like you'd have to have a really serious claim to challenge a sea bear to a duel. It would have to be like a really egregious, like he had an affair with your wife. You can't just challenge a sea bear to a duel because he took your seat at the lunch table. Hashtag not a cult. Although a flotilla nation would be pretty interesting, wouldn't it? I wonder if it could work. That would be interesting. I know it's possible to make. I actually know it's possible to build a ship large enough to have a hydroponic or aquaponic farm on it. It's totally possible to do that. And I've heard aircraft carriers described as floating cities before. So how many floating cities do you need to have a floating nation? It would be interesting, and you would be sailing from port to port and trading, mostly oceanic, probably mostly your farm products, and maybe you could actually have manufacturing facilities on the ships. Who knows? That would be really interesting. Oh yeah, I saw. I subscribed to Tim Pool already. If you aren't subscribed to Tim Pool, you should go do it. Uh, hmm. Well, there are lots of tremendously dangerous animals that present different kinds of danger, such as the box jellyfish. They are almost impossible to detect, and they can deliver enough venom to kill you with a single touch. And well, you're paralyzed within seconds. Oh, and you're also swimming. So it's like, how do you define the most dangerous animal? We didn't talk very much about your heroes, guys. I think I bared my soul to you guys, and I got very little in return. Yeah, that's true, space battleship. However, you can't live on only fish. I don't know what you mean by that, Barney. I don't know what you mean by going Joe Rogan on us. I actually don't watch very much of Rogan. How am I doing? How am I doing? Doing pretty okay. It is awfully warm in here, dudes. Yeah, but how long did they live? And were they stunted in their growth? Right? Like subsisting is not the same thing as thriving. And in this modern day and age, with our access to all kinds of food due to improved farming and trade, I don't think anyone is going to settle for less than physically thriving if they have any brains in their head. There are people who are perfectly willing to slowly kill themselves with diabetes and obesity. But that's a separate problem, and I think that's a problem of intelligence more than anything than availability. Oh, it's like well, I don't know very much about wildlife, but it's like the things that I do know are, kind of interesting, I think. I mean, I could start watching more nature documentaries. I think wildlife is tremendously interesting, and I feel a little bit sorry that I didn't keep on learning as much about wildlife as I have about other interests like economics and philosophy and theology. So I'm a little bit sorry I don't know as much about wildlife as other subjects. I guess it would be interesting to know more. It might give me a more well rounded perspective on the world. Well, there you go, Space Battleship. They didn't last at all. Watch natural? I don't know what that is. Yeah. Flotilla civilizations. Um, Flotilla civilization. The idea of a voluntary civilization is also. Oh, do you think nature is great? Is that what you meant to say? Watch nature is great. Is that like a YouTube channel? I don't know what you're talking about, Barney. Man, it is awfully hot. Oh, there you go. Finally, I'm having some really. I'm having a little bit of latency issues here with the lag between you and me, but that's okay. Yeah, I could write a story about a flotilla civilization. That might be interesting. That might be tremendously interesting. A modern flotilla civilization. And there are some sea crops that you can grow to get vitamins from. That would make an interesting story, I think. The guy who built a There's a guy who built a rocket to see if the Earth was flat. Is flat. Uh, he sounds fascinating, but not particularly heroic. So I can see why you wouldn't consider him to be your hero. People do all sorts of wild things. Oh, I see what you mean now, Barney. Dang it, space battleship. Now I can't stop thinking about a flotilla civilization. And now I'm thinking that I'm thinking that there might actually be uh there might actually be a warrior sort of class who ride jet skis, like knights in the water, except jet skis. It's all your fault. Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting, but it still lacks mobility, which I think is what you're going for with your flotilla idea, space battleship. But it might offer some of the advantages of an ocean. It might offer some of the advantages of an island. Oh yeah, that was a. I gotta watch that again. I enjoyed Waterworld. It's not a very good movie. Actually, it's entertainingly bad. All right, yeah, that's pretty good. Flotilla. So, I think I heard on the Tom Woods podcast something about oh, well, it's like how many floating cities become a nation, right? It could grow to be a whole flotilla, an entire floating nation. Did you hear about that on the Tom Woods show? Because I think I did hear about this about a free market based city being built off of the coast of a country in Africa, kind of like a Hong Kong model deal, where they say, "Hey, just give us this area of." No, I haven't heard of a drilling rig capsizing, but I'm not very. Yes, China has been making fake islands. They have also been making fake cities and fake roads and lots of fake things. They are employing construction workers for the sake of them not being employed at the moment, and it is frightening what they're doing because it's unsustainable. Like when it collapses, it's going to collapse hard on China. Like they've got kind of like this unregulated free market side of their economy that's keeping the country afloat, but they've also got these massive state spending projects that just are not sustainable at all. Yeah, that does make sense. Space mining abilities. I don't know if China is worse than North Korea. They're certainly not good. They're better than they used to be, but it's like they're still doing things that cannot be sustained at all. They will collapse, and it will. Yeah, actually, they are just airstrips. Not necessarily all of them are weapons. Most of them are just empty. Nothing there. They're just putting a mass in the ocean and calling it an island space battleship. It's it's like how do you even analogize it? It's like a I don't even know how to analogize this, but It's like a suit of armor that's shambling around, being jerked by strings. Now, China appears to have more influence over the Pacific than the USA because they're focusing a lot of their resources on building up their military assets in the region. However, like I said, what they're doing is absolutely unsustainable. They're trying to do things that are just impossible, and they think that having a large free market section of their economy will be enough to prop it up, but it won't. Yeah, a lot of them do sink all the time, Barney. Like, China wants to make themselves look more powerful than they are. They want the world to be frightened of them. Because if you're frightened by your enemy, you won't engage them. So it's much better to have your enemies frightened of you than to actually go to war against them. It's like, so knowing how brutal the Chinese Red Army can be, and seeing them appear to build up their arsenal, it could be rather frightening to people in the area. But yeah, a lot of they're not built particularly well, just like their empty cities are not built particularly well. Yeah, actually, yes, it did happen while we were busy spending trillions of dollars trying to fix an unfixable region. When it's not our job and not our problem. Like, if we're going to be engaged in the Middle East at all, it should be only honoring military treaties. That is it. And we should only sign treaties that do not put us in a position to be dragged into conflicts that are inevitable. Like, for instance, I don't think that Israel actually needs US aid. I think that Israel's mostly free market and, well, frankly, really martial spirit will protect them from crazy people in the Middle East who want to wipe them off the map. I don't think they actually need the US's help. So sending them millions of dollars of aid while also sending all of their enemies millions of dollars of aid is kind of retarded. Yeah, that's another problem is the one-child policy. Kind of encourage female selective abortions because of how inheritance laws work in China. See, if you have a boy in China, then he is legally required to take care of you in your old age, but a girl is not. A lot of weird stuff is happening in Saudi right now, Space Battleship. And I think it's because the king of Saudi wants his son to be the next king instead of his brother. So, like, a whole bunch of Saudi royals just got chucked in jail for corruption. Do you know about that? That's pretty wild. Princes in jail for corruption. Who'd have thought? It's pretty wild, huh? Yeah, that's actually why they removed the one child policy is because they don't have now they barely have enough females to to have a replacement rate. So and the problem they're going to have is unmarried males. With that kind of ratio, you're not going to be able to find wives for all of those men. So that's going to be a problem. Yeah, the Saudis are closer to don't be a dickism than other cultures in the region. I think we need to worry about the Iranians at the moment, although they are trying to throw off the oppressive yoke of the mullahs, and they do deserve our moral support, not necessarily military or financial aid, because honestly, we're like $5 trillion in debt. We can't afford to do any of this anymore. We can't afford this, and and expecting future generations to pay for today's indulgences is a little bit ludicrous. I think that we need to. I think 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 we need to make good arguments for the people who want to make positive change in the region. Just good arguments. Help them formulate good arguments. Help them convince other people in their region to change their minds. Help those people actually want the change that they think would be positive. Help convince them. And part of that might be changing our own minds, changing our own culture to value life a little bit more, to value life and prosperity instead of just stuff and pleasure. Stuff and pleasure. Saudis are making gold buildings? Wow, that's pretty wild. Is it a Trump Tower? That'd be pretty funny. The golden Trump Tower in the middle of the desert. All sorts of crazy things are happening in the Middle East right now. It's wild, man. It's like there's an alliance between Israel and Saudi right now. Wow, I'm just like floored, man. I'm floored. Like and people in Iran, men and women, are burning hijabs and Qurans. These are Muslims doing this because they say that the theocrats in charge of their country are using the Quran to oppress them rather than guide them spiritually. So, oh man, what a time to be alive! What a thing to witness! What a thing to see, man! Muslims burning the Quran. I am just floored. That's like seeing Christians burn the Bible. It's like I can barely even comprehend what's happening these days. And I think that Scott Adams is right. I think we are moving in a positive direction. And I think we can keep moving in a positive direction. I don't think we have to stop being. I don't think we have to stop moving in a positive direction. I don't think that. I am not entirely sure that the cycle of history is unbreakable. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make hard times. Hard times make strong men. That cycle, it's been unbroken for thousands of years. But can we be strong when times are good? Can we do it? Or better yet, instead of being weak, can we be good? Can we figure out what being good is? Can we live the Sermon on the Mount? Can we do it? Can we do it? Can we be good? Now, a lot of atheists might disagree with the Christian idea of goodness, and that's fine. We can debate that. we can debate what goodness actually is, but I think we can start with these times so prosperous. We can start by acknowledging the things that are definitely not good. Definitely not good. Worshipping a human. Definitely not good. Worshipping a graven image. Definitely not good. Worshipping money. Definitely not good. Stealing things. Definitely not good. Having sex with someone else's wife. Definitely not good. Murdering people. Definitely not good. Coveting other people's stuff. Definitely not good. Hating your own parents. I mean, it's like, if your parents actually deserve to be called your parents, because I think you do have to earn being. I think you actually should have to earn the name father and mother. I think you should have to earn that because, well, it's you made this kid, and you did it on purpose, and the kid didn't have any say in it, and so now you have a responsibility. Now you have a responsibility to be a good parent, to be worthy of that, to be worthy of the trust that a child has, whether they like it or not, in you. I think you got to work to be worthy of that. And if we start by acknowledging these very simple, definitely not good things, like definitely not good, don't steal. Well, that means socialism is definitely not good. Definitely not good. Don't murder. Well, that means starting a war is definitely not good. If we can just start in these prosperous times to acknowledge and live according to avoiding these things, which we know through experience of thousands of years are definitely not good, maybe, just maybe, the weak men, though they are weak, can still be good enough to not make hard times. Maybe we can avoid making the hard times. Who knows? If we can be morally strong enough to avoid the things that we know are definitely not good. This has been Field Talk. I am the Field. Just remember, don't do the things you know are definitely not good. Have a good night, and never forget that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell, follow me on Twitter @FieldOfBears, tell your friends, and have a great night.